I'm excited to get to talk to you about the crossing and the projects that I got to do with them. First, I just want to say a couple thank yous. One to everybody who's here for taking time out of your Saturday to come and hear our stories and support us and give us feedback. I think I can speak for all of us and say that we've all worked really hard on these, but we all have poured a lot of ourselves and our emotion and our time into these projects. And so it means a lot to us for you guys to be here listening to us and supporting us. So thank you. Thank you to Mrs. Minke again and to the whole business school. They've been incredibly supportive of me and my project and just of my time here in general. So with that, we'll get started. Just a little bit of information about what the Crossing is. The Crossing is a school. It's an alternative high school. It's a faith-based organization that focuses on targeting at-risk students, so students who have dropped out of school, of high school, or have gotten in trouble. Most of the students at the school tell a story of they've got in trouble at their public high school, and so they come here either to finish school or just for a short time until they can get things figured out and get back to the public school. There's 28 campuses now of the Crossing. They started in 2003, and so that's a pretty solid growth. I feel like they're headquartered in Elkhart and have just sort of spread their way across the state, and there's a couple campuses in Chicago too. They do some incredible work, mostly attributed to these 160 dedicated staff members. One of my favorite things about spending time at the Crossing was just watching how engaged the teachers and instructors are and how much they care about these students. I just have been constantly contrasting my experience here with my high school experience. And not that I had a bad experience at high school or that I didn't feel supported by my teachers, but there's something about the way that these teachers work that's different. And it's really incredible for these students to get to experience that. So one of the big things that makes the Crossing education and alternative education, or there's a couple different platforms. One, they do all of their schoolwork online and at their own pace. And so it enables students with difficult and busy lives to fit their school in when they can, when they need to. Online, I say that in that they come to the campus and log on to the computer. So it's not like a remote learning platform, but they're actually on campus. And then the big focus, and this is where I've been involved, is in this job training piece. So each student, to get a diploma from the Crossing, has to earn job training credits. So each campus of the Crossing has some sort of job training program that enables students to get hands-on experience working, learning some business concepts, and various things like that that helps them be prepared to step out into the real world. Because a lot of these students, as you can imagine, don't end up at an institution like this pursuing a degree. They get their diploma and then they go to work. So our job is to help them be prepared to do that and to do that well. In Fort Wayne, the job training program is hosted by Master Spas. So actually the whole campus is inside of Master Spas facility. They're a local manufacturer here in town. And this is the dynamic. So the first step is the micro business. And this is where I spent most of my time working. Traditionally, the micro business has manufactured pallets and then sold them to Master Spas. That got interesting this year, and I'll talk about that later in the presentation. But students who do well and work hard and show interest and engagement then have the opportunity to get promoted to the work team. So this is basically an apprenticeship program. These students go over to the manufacturing line at Master Spas and work alongside the employees, see how manufacturing is done, and just spend some time soaking up the atmosphere and learning everything they can, with the opportunity of applying for the internship, which is actually a paid position that they're able to do on top of their schoolwork, working for Master Spas. They're employees of Master Spas. So my role, I sort of worked with the Crossing staff and created my position, so I also got to create my title. And so It's a mouthful, but I think it sounds cool. I call myself the Strategic Consulting and Business Management Instructing Intern. And so I think that encompasses what I was able to do with them. I served as both a resource. A lot of, and pretty much all of the staff comes from an academic background. They're teachers. And then trying to run this business. It was really helpful to have me there with a basic understanding of how financial information works, how a business is organized, and how to report and record that and make sense of things in an organized manner. And so that's where my value really came from. I also got to teach a little bit to the students, which I found that I really enjoy. I got to teach some basic management and business concepts, as well as how to do some simple accounting work and how to interact with other businesses. I also like to think of myself as a mentor to them. Because of my position, I got to spend some time just hanging out with students, getting to know them, talking to them, and hearing their stories. And I think that I have a lot to offer to them, just like they have a lot to offer to me. Just in summary, I've tracked my hours just because I was curious, and I thought that might be a good benchmark to have. So I've spent about 175 hours on campus, but I've enjoyed every minute of it, and it's been a really great experience for me. This is a recap of some of the projects. So I actually started going down to the campus in January of 2017. So some of my presentation last year incorporated some of these projects that we worked on. But back then, we were basically building out the accounting system for this micro business, trying to get it robust and functional, and then to a point where the students could own it, understand it, and perform what needed to be done. So here's some projects that we worked on. The big one and the one on top is break-even analysis. That's something that we do every week, pretty much, because things are always changing, and it's easy for the students to understand. Like, instead of break-even analysis, they'd say, oh, what's that? But if we say, how much of our product do you have to make this week in order to be able to do this again next week? That makes sense, and they can get behind that and get to work. And so here's some other projects that they worked on, just a bunch of big business words. But really fun for me and really educational for the students. So here's a picture of what our books looked like. I made some fictional entries here just to sort of keep some confidentiality and not throw out all of our actual financial information, one, and two, it wouldn't have fit on a slide if we had all of our transactions in here. So this is basically our catch-all journal where every financial transaction is recorded. So up at the top you can see revenue entries are credited, and then the expenses are recognized as debits on here. So I built this out in Excel, which I really enjoyed doing. And then we got to a point towards the end of using this system that I really didn't have to do much of the entering in here. The students were at a point where they kind of understood this and were able to make these entries. This pulls automatically into this expense report summary broken down by the categories in each month, and then that pulls into this income statement. And I'll bring this back up again later, but we had some fun times talking through this and looking at income statements and how those work. So this is the analysis of my fictional numbers, but that box on the far left over there is our actual breakdown for this past year. So just pulling numbers off my head, I did a pretty good job of estimating what we actually did. But we actually were able to be profitable this last year, the business, which is awesome because that allows us to do fun things with the students, to take them out on trips and reward them for their hard work, things like that. One of my big projects at the end of last school year was the Crossing corporate came and said that they wanted to create a program to hire a couple of the students to work the microbusiness through the summer and to keep making pallets, to keep them busy and occupied through the summer and out of trouble, earning some money and to maintain our relationship and customer base with master spas. So I built out a couple of models for this. One was just paying them an hourly wage, how productive would we have to be to make that work. An incentive wage would be you have no base, but you get paid based on how profitable you are. So basically, how hard you work is how well you're going to get paid. And what we ended up landing on is this third model, which is a combination of the two. So we actually hired 3 students. We paid them minimum wage for 3 weeks in the summer. And then anything that they were able to produce that had earnings above what it cost to run the program was then distributed to them on a prorated basis. And they actually ended up being able to earn a little bit more than the minimum wage just by being focused and working hard and cranking out pallets all day long, which is kind of fun. I got to do a little bit of that too, and it was always a nice break from studying and sitting in an office. But things got interesting this year because in the fall, Master Spas came to us and said that they needed us to basically chop $3 off the selling price of our pallet, which is a pretty significant portion of the selling price of a pallet. I mean, we sell them for about $18 a piece, so that's a pretty solid percentage to cut. So and it was cool to see the students kind of own this project. Myself and the other staff kind of just sort of guided their conversations, but they were the ones who came up with all the ideas and made the presentations. We had some board members come in sort of as consultants. So our students presented the problem to them. Here's our problem. Here's what we have thought through so far. Do you have any suggestions or connections? We made a couple prototype pallets. We actually took a field trip to a company that makes pallets to see how they do it, if they're more efficient, using fewer materials. And so based on that trip and our research, we built out a couple prototype pallets, which didn't end up working out. They didn't save us enough money, and they weren't up to standards that Master Spas was expecting. And so the solution was to reorganize and find a new niche to serve Master Spas. And Master Spas is out to see the crossing succeed. So they're coming at these issues less of figure this out or you're out, or here's a real life problem, figure out a solution to it. And so they helped us through this problem, but we found a couple small parts that they use that we can manufacture. So the first one's a wooden billet. It's just a 2x4 that's like 1.5 feet long. And you just take 2 hole saw cuts on the top corners and then send a drill press down through each side. So 4 simple motions, and it takes like 20 to 30 seconds to pump one of these out. And then the other piece is the corner of the hot tub paneling. They have these little rivets attached to them to help them slide and lock into place. So we attach those rivets to the corners, and then we sell them for $0.25 a piece to Master Spas. And so we've had to make some big changes to our business to accommodate this new product line. Our space looks different, and we're no longer ordering raw materials from an outside source. And so that sort of changes how the business looks from a financial standpoint. We had to do some of those projects that I had up earlier again. We had to redo our break-even analyses to identify, do we have enough time in the day to make enough of these that we can keep this business sustainable? We had to create a new system of financial information to record and report what was going on. And the students got to taste a bit of the marketing world too. They were tasked to come up with a new name for this micro business. And I think they nailed it. They call it Corners and Things. And I think that's really cool. And I like that. And that's their title when they communicate with Master Spas, cornersandthings@gmail.com. So here's how the space looks. We have this table up here where the students work on the computer, sending invoices and entering information into the financial statements. I think it's cool because I haven't sent an invoice in like 2 months. And I, before, was sending every single invoice. And that's really exciting to me, and that's part of the goal of this project was to get it to a point where the students knew how this worked and could do it on their own. So I feel really excited about that. So talking through the effectiveness of this project, it's hard to measure based on like some of the other metrics that we saw earlier from some of the other projects. It's just hard to measure, how do you know if this is being effective or not? And so I'll talk through a couple of things. One is that, like I just mentioned, the students have been able to spend more time, and largely due to the change in no longer producing pallets and producing these simple parts, they're able to spend more of their day meeting with me or working on the computer or just seeing what all goes into a business besides just the labor aspect. And that's really the point, because the crossing doesn't need pallets made. The crossing needs these students to learn about life and about work and about business. And so if they're getting to learn things like work ethic and hard work and doing something that you don't want to do, because oftentimes you don't wake up in the morning and think, I'm going to go make 60 pallets today. But I mean, we all feel that about life all the time. And that's a truth and something that you have to learn and experience and step into. So it's exciting for me to watch them be able to learn more about the business from a holistic approach. They learn other soft skills too, how to communicate with each other, teamwork, leadership, and things like that. Confidence is a big one. When the students would send emails to master spas, it's fun to watch their growth in this, but originally they would come to us with every single sentence. Okay, how do I write a greeting? What do I say next? Is this good? Is this okay to send? Can I send this? So it's fun to watch growth in that aspect too, and confidence in communicating with people and with adults. Also, the students learn technical skills. I mean, they are working with power tools. They're working with their hands. They're learning fine motor skills and trades that, I mean, likely they won't all end up producing pallets someday, but I mean, knowing how to work with your hands or how to fix a staple that's sticking out, when you see that and you think, oh, how can I fix this? I need to take some snippers and cut it. Things like that are good skills to have when entering the workforce. One of the biggest things and one of the most exciting things to me, I keep saying that, but it's true, this is all exciting to me, but I spent some time with the work team this past semester in Master Spa's facility, and just walking around in Master Spas, I bumped into at least 3 students that were on my work team last year who have graduated and are working full-time manufacturing jobs for Master Spas, earning good wages and taking care of themselves. And I think that's awesome, and just a testament to the purpose of this organization, but also the effectiveness of this organization. Some stories, I mentioned the income statement piece and how I'd talk about that later. We had to really close out our books when we made the switch from pallets to parts. And so I spent a lot of time meeting with students and working through that. And so one day we did a little exercise. I asked them to come up with the biggest company that they could think of. So we looked at Google and we went and found, it's Alphabet, but Google's parents' income statement, their financial information online, and put it right next to ours. And it's essentially the same thing. They have their revenue piece, they have their different expenses, and their titles are a little different, and there's a little more of them. And then they have their net income bottom line at the bottom. And watching their faces when they saw, oh my word, like this is incredible. One of the girls, Aaliyah is her name, she said, she just like keeps telling me every time I see her that this line, like, I'm going to be an entrepreneur. I want to own my own business and do this. And like, she just had no idea that went on behind the scenes of making pallets. And then this last piece, there's a really cool story, which is less about business and more about the culture of the crossing. But one of our students and their family experienced a house fire this winter. which is an awful time to have a house fire because it's cold outside. And so they just were kind of living day to day, trying to figure out how to fix up their house. And one of the students thought to put together a work day to get a bunch of people from the school and teachers to go and just do some construction repair projects around their house. And he actually pitched it to the leadership at Master Spas to ask for support and materials and tools and things like that. And I'm pretty sure that this day happened. And I just think that's so cool, the solidarity that these students feel with each other, and that they really care about each other and are willing to go out of their way to do things that are impactful and helpful. So these were some of the goals of the program. I mentioned before, our main goal is to get this to a point where I am no longer of much value. So I can not be involved and not be there. And this thing still works well and is profitable. And so I think that we've done a good job of getting here. Actually, when I left for my spring break, I told the guy that I've been working with down there that I was going to be gone, but I would have access to my computer if I needed to do anything. And he told me word for word, he's like, you know, I think we're pretty self-sufficient at this point, so I think we'll be all right. And that's exciting for me to see some of these goals get accomplished. I talked last year about this handbook, and I am not very far along with it because we had a pretty robust breakdown of our systems and how they worked, and I was getting ready to publish this handbook, and then we completely changed our whole business model. And so I'm still trying to identify like how that looks in flowchart method and how to explain that best to students. So I'm hopeful that this will be ready to go with our new business by the end of the school year. And I think this will be a good guide for the students and for the continuation of this business into the future. I want to talk a little bit about myself and what I got out of this, because I truly did enjoy getting to spend all of this time down on the campus and working with students. I've spent a lot of time, pretty much since I graduated from high school, working with high school students in various ways through high school ministry programs or various organizations. And I feel, one, passionate about serving high school students, but I feel like I am able to do that well. And it's exciting for me. And so that's one thing that was enticing about the crossing as an opportunity to do this project with, was that I would get to work in a faith-based organization with high school students. But personally, I learned a lot too about the real world, and I spent a lot of time communicating with the leadership at Master Spas and negotiating things like prices and products and things like that. And I think that's a really good experience for me too to take out as I get ready to start my career. And the last thing that I want to say, and I don't know if everyone will agree with me on this, but there's something, a lot of these students just live really hard lives. Their support at home is not ideal. They don't just have access to a whole lot of opportunities. And there's something incredibly meaningful and humbling about stepping into those stories and hearing them. And then as a result, seeing how these students look at life. They're excited, you know, they're learning and they have goals and ambitions. And that's really, I don't really know how to put that into words well, but it's exciting for me and humbling for me to watch them be so grateful with living such hard lives. So all in all, if you couldn't tell, I really enjoyed this project. If I had to go back and do this all over again and pick a new project, I would do the same thing with the same organization. And I'm really glad that it's worked out well for them, for me, for the students. And it's just been a real pleasure for me. So if you guys have any interest in finding out more information, there's a couple websites up here that you could follow. But with that, I'd be happy to field any questions or comments or anything like that.
how did you find or hear about the crossing?
Good question. So I'm connected with a church here in Fort Wayne, and a couple fellow members of that church are pretty involved in the leadership of the crossing. So when I was thinking what I wanted to do, I thought maybe something with high schoolers. So I reached out to them and told them that I study business, and they said, "Oh my word, we need somebody who understands business. Please come and help us." So, yeah.
Hi. So, like you said that you did that you've been in youth ministry for 4 years, and then you did this. But you talked about how your goal was to get it so you weren't really a part of it anymore. So, my question to you is as you are in your professional career, what's your next goal? I guess what's your next goal with service projects and through your religion and everything like that?
Yeah. So by saying that my goal is for it to be functional without me, I mean more from a financial aspect, because I'm not going to be able to spend 6 hours a week for the rest of my life on campus with these students, and there may not be somebody like me who has the knowledge or the time or the willingness to commit. So that's what I mean by that. I mean, there's opportunity to stay involved with the crossing even. They have a board of directors that is a group of people who serve their time leading this business or various things like that. I'm not exactly sure what my future looks like, but I do feel passionate about Fort Wayne and about organizations like this. And I would like to be involved in whatever ways that I can and am able to.
This is an awesome project, and you've done a really good job going through all of it, so there's certainly nothing that you need to add. But would there be an opportunity to teach personal finance to these kids? Because you talk about their background, their hard lives. A lot of times, a lot of us learn how to, manage money and things from our family and seeing it managed well. So would there be an opportunity? You're giving these jobs, giving them a way to generate income, and showing them how best to spend that money and time?
Mm-hmm. So they actually have a personal finance course that's a part of their curriculum. Dave Ramsey, I think, is the author of this program, and so they go through some of those concepts. And yeah, I think that's really valuable to them and exciting. Yeah.
Yeah, so once again, this is a great project. And thank you for your dedication and time to it. So what is the one most rewarding thing you got from serving?
That's a good question. I think just hearing stories of, I love to talk to students about what their goals are. I think that's how I'm oriented. I like to think through what I want to do next and what do I want to accomplish. And so that's my favorite question to ask. What are your plans? What do you want to do? And so hearing them say things like they want to run a business someday, that isn't just whimsical, oh, I watched a movie about this and that looked really cool, I want to be a secret agent or something like that. They understand a little bit about what goes into it, and they see this as an opportunity and something that they want to pursue. So I think that's what it would be for me, is just hearing testimonies of students being interested in business. Also, that's my interest, and so seeing students that I've gotten to know and spent time with wanting to pursue the things that I'm interested in, selfishly is exciting for me because they're obviously making the right choice. But, yeah. Cool. Well, if there aren't any other questions, I think we can wrap it up. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it.